This is my final video. So starting off, I think that defining the difference between art and non-art is very difficult because art is extremely subjective, especially from person to person. So, like what one person may think is art, person may be like, "Oh, that's trash." I remember a couple of years ago there was a piece of art in a museum, and one of the curators thought it was actually trash and threw it away, only to later realize that it actually was art. So I think just depending on like how the art is presented and like people's personal views, that can definitely influence what people define as art and non-art. Um, Another kind of example of this is those ancient Roman statues that are broken. Some people may see it and think, oh, it's broken, it's useless, we don't need to keep this around. Whereas other people may be like, oh no, like look at the technique that goes into making this. It's a piece of history, we need to keep it. So that kind of difference there as well. And then another thing that I would like to talk about is the urinal that Marcel Duchamp submitted to an art contest, like way back when. I think it was like 1917 or something like that. But he just submitted a urinal and he was like, this is art. And of course, most of the people in the competition were like, no, it's not. But it created such an uproar, and he meant to do it as like questioning what art is. And so, in a way, like with people getting upset over it, that became art in a kind of way. Like, originally, it definitely wouldn't be, but seeing everyone's reactions to that and it causing people to like think a little bit harder about, oh, what really is art, like that did influence people. So, all in all, I kind of think that what defines art is something that's created, that's meant to inspire like a deeper thought or created to inspire emotions. Because a lot of the artwork that we saw had that kind of purpose in mind, like, oh, this depicts this, and like the colors and stuff that the artist used is created to evoke a certain emotion, um, and influence the way you view an event or concept. And then seeing art in person instead of a textbook or just a book is a lot different. There's so many different things that you can look at in a book, and then in real life, it's totally different. Of course, sculptures are 3D, so those are always going to be different. You can see all different angles of them, and then, um, like for David, David is a massive statue, and you see a picture of him in like a book or something like that. It's like, oh, that's a pretty impressive statue. But no, like going up and seeing it in person and being like, oh, that's like a big statue, um, definitely gives you more respect for the artist, I think, and it like makes you think a little bit more about it rather than just like kind of looking at it and then flipping to the next page. When it comes to painted artwork as well, I think that has some big influence. Some artwork, especially Gustav Klimt's paintings that have like the gold embellishments in it, like you can't see how shiny that is in a book. Um, like when I walked into the room where they had the kiss, I was like, oh, that's shiny. I never realized that. And then it was so much bigger in real life than I thought it would be. So again, like seeing that scale as opposed to just seeing a picture of it in a book also really like makes it stand out. And especially knowing that someone had to paint that by hand and create it by hand, I think gives you a lot more respect for the artists as well. Um, Rather than being like, oh, that's a picture this big. No, it's the size of a wall. But yeah. And then for people risking their lives for art, I think that there's a lot of reasons that someone would do that. Um, Art represents so much to so many people, and it can represent the like views of people who are poor, rich, anything like that. Anyone can make art, so you can get so many different perspectives as opposed to like what you would maybe see in a history book. Because history books, I know they a common saying is that they're written by the victors. But art can be made by anybody. It's not just by like the government or anything like that. So you can see like how someone who's struggling may view the world, or someone who lives in nature or the city, how they can see beauty and destruction. Like they both have that shared like life experience, but it's going to be so different in a city versus in the forest. Um, and then another really important thing was that art represents culture and heritage and all kinds of history. So if people are stealing art and destroying it, that gets rid of all of that history and culture. Especially what was happening during the Holocaust is they would destroy people's artwork, and that like ends that story. Art can pass down so much. And one thing about art is that it really never dies. Like you can have paintings from the 1200s in a museum, and it shows like what someone was thinking, what history is going on. Even if the artist isn't there to tell you, they can still show you from that long ago. So for the people that were risking their lives for that, they understood that and they were dedicated to preserving that. Um, yeah, a couple of times I experienced wonder was in the Sistine Chapel. Just walking in there and then looking up and seeing the creation of man was amazing. Especially being in the chapel. This kind of goes back to seeing art in a book versus in person, but you see the picture of the creation of man in a book, and it's like, oh, okay, that's cool. But going into the Sistine Chapel and seeing that in person, and then seeing how there's paintings that are equally beautiful along the entire roof of that chapel was incredible. And it just like makes you think like, wow, this was something that someone did so long ago, and it's on the very top of a church. How did they get up there? How long did this take? And it was really incredible to see. Something else that I thought was very interesting and inspired wonder was in the Uffizi Gallery, seeing some of the statues that they had that had effects where it was like you could almost like see through the fabric on certain statues, or like you could tell that the fabric was supposed to be wet or something like that. And it was just like there's so much detail, and it was pretty amazing. Another thing that inspired wonder was kind of just like experiencing the cities and wandering around, and then you see beautiful artwork in random churches that you walk into, or just beautiful architecture everywhere. I know that my group, like we would walk into different churches just to see like what was going on in there, and most of them had this beautiful artwork all over the ceiling, kind of similar to the Sistine Chapel, but it's like places you've never heard of. So that was very interesting. And then I think my experience on this trip definitely has increased my confidence in a few ways. I feel a lot more confident in my abilities to like get around and see the world and stuff like that. Because I mean, I had to go halfway across the world on my own, and I did it, and I'm back, and I'm safe. So I feel a lot more confident in regards to that. And then like meeting new people and getting to meet them and interact with them, I feel a lot more confident doing that now as well. And I also feel like my problem solving skills have improved a lot, especially since we had to make a lot of quick decisions if something went wrong. And along with that, kind of understanding priorities, my understanding of that has kind of changed. So I can do that a bit quicker now and be like, oh, this is the top priority. These are the like kind of constraints that we need to work with, and like putting certain importance on certain things. And then the trip also increased my appreciation for art and history. Just seeing so many different pieces of art from so many different kinds of people and so many styles, years, everything like that. I'm definitely interested in going around the world and seeing more of that kind of stuff, or even just trying to find other museums that have something like that. And then my appreciation for history also increased, because in the US, we kind of have stuff that's like 300 years old, and that's kind of it. But over there, there's so much stuff that's thousands of years old or hundreds upon hundreds of years old. So I think that made me want to travel more and experience more history.